attention at all to what you're doing. And two, they will move everything in parallel motion and read very vertically. So always emphasize the horizontal aspects of music. Okay, let us have a C in the tenor and a G in the alto. Can we agree upon that? All right. Let's now have a race. I might take that. Did I mention prizes? And to assure that I win, I'll continue to talk. That's right, I erased something. Who won?
You did.
The one who didn't give up. Did anyone give up?
I never tried.
Okay, we're beginning. The first thing we did was keep the common tones and move the alto to the A. Was everybody good with that? The next thing, another third, so you keep the inner voices the same and move the soprano to F. Everybody good so far? I'll tell you if you have to make a decision. Now the next one, no decisions. Soprano goes from F to D, alto A to G, and tenor C to B. Must move in contrary motion. The next thing is 5 to 1. Now there's a couple of things you could do here, but I chose to move the B to C in the tenor, keep the common tone G, and move the D to E. Other choices could be steps and thirds, which would read from the bass up C, G, E, C. My current thinking is C, C, G, E. Did that make any sense? Did you follow along with that? So I did get to make a choice there. Now the next thing, if I was at C, C, G, E, I have to be at D, A, F, D for the next chord. Because we're again moving steps apart, not deception. That's 1 to 2 to 5. Now moving to 5, I did not choose to do a tertian leap. I chose steps. I keep the common tone. So the D in the soprano remains. So from the bass up, G, B, G, D. Are we together on that? And then the A is deception, so my only choice here is A, C, E, C. Now in the major mode, you can double the A. But I don't want to get into that right now. Next one will be DAFD. Again, that one, because I had doubled the C, I don't really have any good way to do that, but DAFD. Now the next chord, I could do a couple different ways, but I'm going to choose to do GBGD. I could also have gone GGDB, but I chose not to. And lastly, I am going to not frustrate my leading tone, so I'm going to go CCGE, keeping the common tone in the alto, meaning I have an imperfect authentic cadence.
Tell me what you have for the last two chords again.
GBGD,
Right.
CCGE. Now there could be alternatives to both of those without mistakes and with no punishments.
And
Okay.
what?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just had a question about the rule, about going from the third to the fourth chord, where everything had to move in contrary motion. Which rule is that again?
Step roots second apart, which is everything moves in contrary motion to the bass. Otherwise, you'll have parallelisms. That is rule 2. It has no, that is rule 3, sorry. The only alternative to rule 3 is deception. Now, who knows deceptive motion not to 6? What's, if deception 99% of the time is 5 to 6, what's 0.8% of the other 1%? Five to 3?
I don't know. I'm just.
2? No?
Well, it's not 2, it's not 1, it's not 3.
4.
Well, it's very specific. Let's see. Let's think about this deception here. Everybody dig? Okay. What is the closest thing I can make to that chord? And no, you're not going to get it, but take a guess. Kind of. Yeah, it is 4, but it's...
Oh. 4, 6.
Normally we would think of 4, 6, 5 to 4 as retrogressive, yes?
Yeah.
5 to 4. Things going out of order are called retrogressive, but this is... You can have, if you do this incorrectly, what do you think could happen? Parallel fifths. If you have these voices reversed, you've got parallel fifths. So you can't just willy and nilly go to 4, 6. You have to do it correctly. Did that help? You have to do it right. Ah!
Let's see your second one. Did you get the second one? Can I see
First deception. Now here's deception to 4/6. Kind of rock and rolly. I dig it. So there's your other deception. So the next thing would be chords of the inversions, yes? Oh my goodness. People have different opinions about first inversion chords, so let me just tell you. I believe, except in case of the 7 chord, that double the root of the inverted chord. Other people believe double the bass. Other people believe double the soprano. In a basic voice leading pattern, double the root. Now, why does Bach make a lot of doubling exceptions in the chorale? Let's discuss the chorales. Do we all know what they are? Bach was a Lutheran, and those Martin Luther invented New Church or whatever, and I think what Luther was having a problem with the music is that there was all this beautiful music in the Catholic Church, and all the words had so much meaning, particularly after the Council of Trent, where they required that the music represent the words, because this is devotional stuff. In the Catholic Church, the congregation didn't sing. There was all this beautiful music, but it wasn't the actual worshipers singing it. So Luther just took a lot of tunes. A lot of them were from the Catholic Church, and a lot of them were popular tunes. There's all kind of things that he set verses to. And what Bach did was harmonize these melodies. And a lot of the melodies were quite modal because they've been passed down through other traditions that weren't tonal. So a lot of Bach's, he did 371 that Riemann Schneider collected. He also did another 69 with just bass and soprano and figures. So those are a lot of fun too. For many, many years, that's what we taught harmony from, was just the Bach chorales. Now there is a book, it's a great name,
Okay, yeah. Cool.
okay, The Contrapuntal Harmonic Technique of the 18th Century by Alan Irvin McHose. He was the Eastman teacher for many years, and what he did, literally, is do a statistical survey of every chord in the 371. And his stuff looks, he has figured bass, but he doesn't use Roman numerals kind of the way that we do, so we find it kind of unusual, but I've learned a lot from this book, mainly like the examples of the augmented sixth chords and the Neapolitan in the chorales, which is the lecture that I used when I applied for the job here. I taught augmented sixth chords, gave the four examples out of the 371 chorales, and well, really went over everybody's head, even the faculty. It was, I think they must have thought I knew something because they were so confused by the lecture. That was fun though. Okay, Macos is an interesting book, and I want you to all to spend a few minutes with it when you get a chance. There's probably one in the library too. I'm going to skip first inversion and go right on to second inversion. Okay? So, first inversion makes life more interesting. It truly does. The most powerful first inversion chord is the 7/6 chord, just because it doesn't put the leading tone in the bass. And what's the beauty of the 7/6 chord is this. You're allowed this, what's called a clausula vera, or a true close, which means a sixth expands to an octave. That's very important in two-part counterpoint, but here, if I was writing this 7/6 chord, I would need this, and that's going to go to there. Now, I probably don't want to double the B or the F, because then that sets up two sets of tritones, doesn't it? And I can't make them all resolve correctly, so it's a little confusing to know what to do. Now, if I do that D there, clearly that's very weak there, where I've doubled the third and doubled the root. That's not something that's done so much. So here is the alternative in your four-part writing to this true close. The augmented fourth is allowed to resolve in similar motion to a perfect fourth. Okay? Let's go on to second inversion chords, because we've already discussed them. The first one we're going to discuss, and I'll do this in outer voices, and now this C moving to this E, and this E moving to this C, and that C moving to this E is what's called a voice exchange in music theory. Okay, so we've expanded this voice exchange by having an actual passing tone between the two, haven't I? So if I didn't have this, and if I had 1 moving to 1/6, I could say my 1 chord contracted to the 1/6 chord. So something. Okay? Now if I add I have a passing tone now, don't I? da, 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 da. Now, if this passing tone becomes a chord in and of itself, it becomes a 6/4 chord. What is common about all dissonant 6/4 chords? What is true for all of them? That was a question for the class. What is true of all dissonant 6/4 chords? What one thing must we do? Okay, what one thing must we learn that all dissonant 6/4 chords do? Double the bass. Double the bass, which is not the root, is it? It's the bass. The bass is not the root, except when the root is the bass. Okay, so I've already got my passing 6/4. So this is truly 5, but only in a parenthetical sense. The root of this is 5, but the chord is 1 being contracted to 1/6. I could go the other way, 1/6 expanding to 1. Do we see that? Is that clear? So when you have a passing 6/4 chord, you have a voice exchange with the bass and one upper voice. I've used the melody for illustrative purposes. 2, you have one static voice, in this case the alto. 3, you will have one neighbor voice, in this case being the tenor. Okay, so the reason it's called a dissonant 6/4 chord is because that 6/4 chord does not feel like G is the resting point. Does that make sense? The root is G, but the chord does not represent its root. Okay? And one thing that you could do with this set of chords small tunes like Mary Had a Little Lamb. One day we could discuss all the ways to harmonize 3 Blind Mice. We will get to that. That was Mary Had a Little Lamb. Dave, don't do that. Okay? That's called passing 6/4. Now, why do we call these things what we call them? We want them to be represented by non-harmonic tones, which we haven't gone over yet, have we? But we all understand the concept of a non-harmonic tone, but in this case, it's a passing tone. What is a passing tone? It is a non-harmonic tone that resolves in the same direction that it is approached. So here's our chord tones. So if I have this chord, that's passing tone. So it resolves, it's approached by a chord tone, and resolves to a chord tone in the same direction, as opposed to a neighbor tone. Resolves in the opposite direction it's approached, meaning it comes back from whence it came. The person you don't talk to, that's your neighbor. Think of that as the neighbor tone. Okay, so we have what's called a neighbor 6/4 chord. Again, we double the bass, and an easy representation of this. We really have 2 neighbors. Again, only parenthetically. We don't hear this as a root, we hear it as neighboring. Okay, simple enough. Something there. That's called a neighbor 6/4 chord. Now comes the cadential 6/4 chord. Now the reason it got to be called a cadential 6/4 chord because often it occurs at the cadenza of the first movement of a classical concerto. And then we get back to, and we finish our concerto. So, cadential 6/4 chord does something other than this. Let's just do it down here. Okay, so it's gonna resolve to here. Okie dokie. Now, it has to be approached. Dana, don't write that down. I made a mistake. 5 resolves to 1. Oh, really? Okay. So, this has to be approached. Let's just approach it with the 4 chord. Now, if this is our cadential 6/4 chord, it literally has, cadential 6/4 does this. We label it all over the 5 chord because we think of it as a suspended 5 chord. And here is our 4/3 suspension right there, isn't it? Okay? Now, if I kept this note a G instead of making it an E, this would be called a cadential 4/3 suspension. But at this point, it's called a cadential 6/4 chord. And what it does is it has a passing tone and a suspension to the 5 chord. This passes, this suspends. And that's why it's not a 1 chord. So I'll play this progression beginning on a 1 chord. Imperfect authentic, but it could have been perfect authentic by frustrating my leading tone. Okay, do we understand cadential 6/4 chord? It is again a non-harmonic tone described as a whole chord. We did have another name for this one, as you recall. It was also pedal or auxiliary. Neighbor notes are also called auxiliary notes, so that's where we get that. We will move the last one all the way over to here. And this is called passing over stationary base. Usually, but not always, this happens on a 5-chord. So it goes the opposite of the cadential 6/4 chord, which goes 6/4 to 5/3. This one goes 5/3 to 6/4, and it can also literally go to 7/5. So watch, if you will. There you see my bass note is automatically doubled. So if an okay, we see that, that's a 5-chord. We see this is a 6/4 chord with 1 as its root, and now we have a 5/7/5 chord that has no leading tone in it, but as I described yesterday, we still associate this note with the leading tone. Now, are you allowed to come back down to this B instead? Yes, you are. So what does it do? It expands 5 to 5/7, or 5/7 contracting to 5. So let's hear it. Let's hear it. Now we've all heard that, right? But now you know what it is. That's what theory's about. Putting an intellectual value on something that you know in your body. Passing over stationary bass, or a PSB. We don't see this one in a lot of the books, but it's there. What might be another passing over stationary bass? Probably 4 to 4/7 or 1 to 1/7. But we don't see them as much. We mainly see this. Okay, that is important in freshman theory, these second inversion chords, because it's giving us something that's more theoretical. It's beyond just naming notes and intervals and whatnot. I don't know, but let's take tomorrow off. I'll be here practice teaching if you want to come in and be a practice student, but we're only meeting Monday through Thursday. And the first week of your 4-week session is now complete, unless you're Kevin or Will, who has to watch this video.
We don't know what the video did, right, Dr.